Hey dear viewer, this is Almighty Z, and we're back with another film regarding the most famous comic book hero of all time, Superman. With the DCEU finally eating a metaphorical poison eclair and dying, James Gunn has taken over DC Comic films to rejuvenate their properties with a new cinematic universe. And like with the DCEU, Superman is the first entry into this new world.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
But does Superman 2025 deliver and return the Man of Steel to glory?
No.
Now before you open fire on me or dislike this video to oblivion, I did partially enjoy watching this film, but I think it's objectively okay at best. This film has gotten a very positive reception, and I get why, because many aspects of this film are good. The first I'll mention is David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Holt's performances respectively. This iteration of Superman puts more emphasis on the humanity of the character, his shortcomings, his mistakes while maintaining his values of optimism and justice, and Corenswet's performance elicits those feelings very well, making you feel Superman's struggles and rooting for him to become the symbol of hope in a complex and cynical world. And Brosnahan's performance shows the following in her Lois Lane: dedicated to good journalism, skeptical at surface level facts, and feisty. All great qualities to have in a Lois Lane. And when the two are together, they have a great chemistry that produces some of the best moments in the film. Holt's Lex Luthor shows a vicious determination while being motivated by narcissism brilliantly. Gunn's direction brings his usual Guardians of the Galaxy style of storytelling to the Man of Steel. Albeit this time it's a tad hyper-stylized. Some jokes don't land, and some visuals are uncanny. But in the end, it does produce feelings of optimism and fun, which is nice to have when walking out of a theater. But what's holding this back? The answer is the story and how we're building the new cinematic universe.
You must have a good story, otherwise it's just masturbation.
This is not a Superman origin story, and it's not a bad thing in isolation. But where this movie takes place in a Superman's timeline, and what aspects of his history are being adapted, you feel like you're catching up to events that could have been presented previously. Or at least could have been shown briefly in this film via well-timed flashbacks. Imagine if the first Star Wars movie took place with the story of Return of the Jedi. You recognize there was a history leading up to the events shown, but you're having to learn the characters' personalities, the film's stakes, and the state of the world all in one movie. And because part of the journey was skipped, the big climaxes and twists aren't as impactful as they could be. This is sort of what Superman 2025 is. Also, several pieces of high tech that Lex Luthor has at his disposal just kind of appear, and they're vital to the story and action set pieces, so you're accepting on the fly they're just a thing in this world, which leads to some major plot conveniences and contrivances. I can believe the super genius billionaire could have some of this technology at his disposal, but when it's the first look into a new world, I should know the limits and or what he and Superman are capable of. And regarding being in a cinematic universe, many new characters are prominently featured right off the bat, like Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. So, along with presenting Superman's character, you're juggling the powers and personalities of these superheroes and how they fit into the world. And it's too much. Especially because these other heroes are not as well known among the cultural zeitgeist. So extra time and effort is made to try and understand who they are and what they can do, but it's still futile. It's like Gunn wanted to avoid the tropes of a first movie in a cinematic universe by jumping ahead in a timeline to a late Phase 2 or early Phase 3, but still frame it as the beginning. It is different and some aspects are good, but the execution is not flawless. So due to these issues, the characters and themes presented are undercut and not as deep as they could be, and Superman himself is most affected. And I like the idea of where they wanted to take his character, and there is a through line that is still good, but the film's events make him a tad too weak. And even at the film's climax, I would argue there should be a bit more agency he could have when saving the day. But now, let's get into spoilers.
You have been warned.
We begin with a text exposition on the state of the world. 3 decades ago, Kal-El landed on Earth and became adopted by the Kents in Kansas. 3 years ago, Clark Kent started working at the Daily Planet and revealed himself to the world as Superman, officially bringing metahumans into society. 3 weeks ago, Superman stopped Baravia from invading a neighboring country called Jarhanpur. The US government wasn't a fan of this because Baravia is an ally and he didn't consult anyone before acting. And 3 hours ago, a mysterious man called the Hammer of Baravia arrived in Metropolis. And 3 minutes ago, Superman just lost his first fight against him.
Everybody got that?
So he's landed near the Fortress of Solitude, but is too injured to move. But he whistles loudly, and Crypto, a super dog, comes to retrieve him after jumping on him a few times. The Fortress of Solitude's robots heal Superman with intense sun radiation, and he flies back to Metropolis. But unbeknownst to Supes, a minion of Luthor called the Engineer has spotted its location. Back in Metropolis, Superman re-engages in the fight with the Hammer of Baravia, but now we see Lex Luthor and his tech team in a control room. It turns out they're controlling the Hammer, and it's done by Luthor calling out fighting moves like a quarterback calling signals to his team. Apparently Luthor has studied countless hours of fighting moves from Superman, but he doesn't realize he's faster than a speeding bullet.
That doesn't make sense.
Luthor, you're supposed to be a genius. Just upload some kind of software program with an extensive algorithm of moves into the Hammer to fight. Or make an AI specialized for this. And because we're about to get to more insane levels of technology that Luthor has, this is not a nitpick at all. Yet somehow the system works because they throttle Superman in the fight.
Really?
Why the hell does this system work? The stupidity of the mechanics here undercut the shock of Superman losing and the intrigue of why. And this isn't the only time this crew fights Superman, so each fight has a tinge of blockheadedness to it. But the Hammer of Baravia takes off, leaving Superman embedded in concrete. A citizen named Malik helps Superman get up, which is very nice, and it shows how popular he is among regular people, given the timeline. The next day, Clark Kent reports to the Daily Planet an interview he got with Superman after the fight. Jimmy Olsen is impressed with how Clark keeps getting these interviews, and Lois remains skeptical about if the Hammer of Baravia is really from the country. It's a nice scene showing a typical day at the planet, and introduces these characters that will become very relevant later on.
A few moments later.
Lex Luthor addresses the Pentagon about his team of metahumans he has at his disposal. Ultraman, who is a powerful entity and is secretly the Hammer of Baravia. The Engineer, who is made up of nanites that allow her to change shape into whatever's needed. And an army of raptors that are like well-armored soldiers who can fly. Luthor tries convincing the Pentagon that his team could handle any threat that comes to Earth and they wouldn't need Superman. But despite the earlier Superman stunt, the Pentagon doesn't agree with Luthor for the time being. But since the Engineer has found the Fortress of Solitude, Luthor and his team head up to investigate and hopefully find some dirt. Back in Metropolis, Lois Lane returns to her apartment and finds Clark. The two look sternly at one another, intensely address each other, then make out. Because it turns out they've been dating for 3 months and Lois knows Clark is Superman. Huh, another 3.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
And before they eat dinner, Clark wants to give Lois Lane an interview while he's Superman. Lois begins the interview fairly cordial, wanting Superman to recap his history. He repeats many beats of his typical backstory, but also mentions an important message from his Krypton parents. It had Jor-El and Lara tell Clark an inspiring message about being a noble leader for Earth before it cut out. And this message is what, above all else, made him want to become Superman. Then the interview starts going into how many view Superman as a threat, especially via social media. Superman tries to play it off cool, that he doesn't have social media, and it doesn't bother him. But Lois puts more pressure on the questions, and he gets frazzled and has to stop recording the interview. The struggle to handle the professional and personal life between Lois and Clark is intensely displayed in this scene. Because then the interview switches to Superman intervening with Baravia, which he stands firm in his belief that people were going to die if he didn't do something. And like before, he doesn't give the best answers and crumbles under Lois's questions. And she's not being fruitlessly aggressive, she's just doing her job as a journalist. It leads to Clark getting frustrated and needing to take a walk, while Lois questions if this relationship was a bad idea. And this whole scene is a good way to establish conflict in their relationship. The next day, while infiltrating the Fortress of Solitude, Luthor releases a kaiju monster to attack the city to distract Superman.
Sure, why not?
Superman has trouble handling the monster, but suddenly, the Justice Gang come in to help. They consist of Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, and are sponsored by Maxwell Lord. The gang weakened the beast by attacking its eyes, which opened its mouth and Terrific sends his robotic T-spheres into his stomach to explode and killed the monster. So yes, Terrific's balls saved the day. But suddenly, on nearby virtual billboards, the news breaks that Lex Luthor discovered something about Superman. It turns out the message from his parents had metaphorical space dust on it, and there was more to it. and Jor-El wanted his son to be willing to take Earth by force and start a sexual harem with as many women as he could muster to repopulate his species.
You fucking kidding me? No.
Yeah, and apparently, as confirmed by 28 linguists, according to both Luther and Mr. Terrific, the message is legit. There is a thematic reason why this adaptation change exists, but for now, let me address something else. How could linguists know and confirm the message's legitimacy from a dead language from another planet that no longer exists? And for those of you who will say, well, maybe this was a fake and a sequel will confirm the hoax, you can't conclude that with only the information given in this film. When watching this, I assumed the film would eventually prove the message was bogus, but it doesn't. And I confirmed by an interview with James Gunn, the message from Jor-El was 100% authentic. So it's now a fact in this universe that Jor-El was a deviant father with horrible motives for sending his son to Earth.
I feel queasy.
Superman flies back to the Fortress of Solitude and sees the damage instigated and that Krypto isn't there. He flies into Luthor's office to confront him.
Where's the dog?
Dog?
The dog, Luther! You took the dog!
That's right, you get all of this.
And with no good evidence and Luthor's girlfriend Eve streaming the confrontation, Superman has no choice but to fly away. Later that night, Lois goes to Clark Kent's apartment and finds Superman solemnly slumped in a chair. Also, an interdimensional imp is attacking Metropolis in the background, but apparently the Justice Gang's got it, so it's okay. Which got a chuckle out of me, but it's odd that Superman doesn't want to help stop a creature harming people, even though he's viewed as a pariah. And the people of Metropolis seem so casual about these giant monsters and villains attacking all the time. I guess it's because we're 3 years into Superman emerging, but it would be nice to explore how people view everything more instead of just glossing it over. But anyway, weighing his options and concerned over Krypto, Superman decides to turn himself in. He reasons he might be taken wherever they took Krypto. Even though it's not his dog, he wants to make sure it's not alone. And it's great to see Superman's compassion being shown here and the film as a whole. With the US government now agreeing with Luthor, they've allowed him to take custody of Supes. And he has a unique way to keep the Man of Steel. For you see, Lex Luthor has created a pocket universe underneath the Earth's crust, with the origin being underneath Metropolis. And using portals he's created around the globe, it allows himself or whoever uses them to transport to opposite ends of the Earth quickly and hold whatever he needs inside.
What the fuck is he on about? Fuck are you on about?
And it's by this point the movie starting several years into a journey we haven't seen becomes a major problem. Because technology to create something this unfathomable needs some explaining to do. This isn't a thing you can make with any modern technology, and there's no account for how Luthor could create his own universe. And like with the hammer and the kaiju monster, Luthor seems to have these endless resources at his disposal, and it robs any tension when they appear in the story. But remember, Luthor can't design a fighting program to upload to the hammer. That's too hard. Within the Pocket Universe, Luthor is keeping Superman captive by having him share a cube cell with Metamorpho, a metahuman who can transform his body into whatever elements he chooses. In this case, kryptonite. And Metamorpho is complying because his son, Joey, is held captive in a nearby cell. But on the way to their holding, they pass by Krypto, who is held captive by scientists, and they pass by thousands of enhanced monkeys who type angry things on the internet about Superman.
Weird.
Look, I can appreciate the monkey typewriting theorem reference, but you also did something unintentionally bad for the story. If you're trying to convey how the world is uneasy and mean to Superman, people helped him before the message was played, and then you show this, you're implying most or all of the online vitriol is fake. While it is a part of Luthor's plan, you need to show how organically some people just won't like Superman. Oh, within the Pocket Universe's prison, Superman is kept along with some of Luthor's enemies, including his ex-girlfriends.
Really?
And no, this isn't done because Luthor is an incel. He's obsessive over losing, not troubles with women. This is done for plot reasons. You see, his current girlfriend, Eve, is getting tired of his ambitions and is still infatuated with her ex, Jimmy Olsen. Apparently, Jimmy Olsen is a babe magnet with big dick energy, and that all the hotties sploosh for. But he gets out of Eve the Pocket Universe info. Jimmy relays this information to Lois, who goes to the Justice Gang for help. They refuse to help her, except Mr. Terrific, who also conveniently has put trackers in Superman and the other gang members' bloodstream.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Let me recap the character's point I made in my intro. Because Superman's origin is well known, it's plausible to tell an introductory story without having to show or explain all of his backstory or powers. The Batman did a pretty good job with this kind of premise. But when it comes to lesser known characters, you can't get away with that. The average moviegoer isn't an expert on the comics these films are adapted from. They need to get information on the Justice Gang's abilities and limitations either through dialogue or being shown in the film. Otherwise, the action scenes and story become riddled with issues. Are they gods? Well-equipped humans? Some kind of cyborg? Well, in the case of Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl, I really couldn't tell you. And like with Luthor's technology, when Terrific announces he has trackers in Superman's bloodstream, it feels more convenient than a 7-Eleven. Otherwise, the story can't continue because there's no other way you could find Superman. After one scene, I can gather you have some kind of cool tech, Mr. Terrific, but not dystopian NSA levels of surveillance already implanted among whoever you choose. And with how involved you become with the story, there isn't enough shown or told about you for me to be invested in your involvement. Anyways, Mr. Terrific and Lois go to the Luthor camp outside of Metropolis. The guards don't immediately stop them, and it allows Terrific to use his spheres to subdue the camp and protect each other. While it's a kinda cool scene visually, I can't help but compare this to a similar scene in Guardians 2. Another scene where a character with massive power eliminates others easily while a catchy song plays. And that one was done better because Yondu was a better established character by that point, from both his involvement in the story and the limits of his powers without his mohawk. So it's more satisfying to see him mow down Ravagers who betrayed him, rather than Terrific take down goons and scientists working for Luthor.
Meanwhile,
Luthor has gotten Malik captive and holds him at gunpoint in front of Superman to draw information out of him. After 2 shots from his revolver, Luthor kills the man, deeply disturbing Superman and Metamorpho. After Luthor leaves, Metamorpho no longer wants to comply with the plan, and Superman convinces him that he can free Joey. The two team up to free Metamorpho's son and escape. But Luthor's other guards, who luckily weren't around when the son got free, attack and force a still weak Superman and Joey into a river of dimensional goop. It's at this point, Mr. Terrific has found one side of the portal into the Pocket Universe and sends his spheres out to find Superman. They find Krypto first and free him, and then Krypto leads the spheres to Superman's location, where they and Metamorpho help Superman and Joey out of the river and out of the universe. Remember ladies, when lost in a black hole of darkness, Terrific Balls can help you in a tight squeeze. But see, despite the escape, it turned out there was a microverse inside the Pocket Universe that powers another Oh wait, that's from a better story.
Gotcha, bitch!
Instead, it's nighttime and Superman remains weak because there's no sun to heal him. Lois Lane takes the Terrific ship with Superman and Krypto and retreats to Ma and Pa Kent's house. After learning of the escape, Luthor has decided to expand the portal into the universe under Metropolis to create a reality rift to draw out Superman, which according to Terrific, required the most precise construction to not do this earlier by accident. If it was off by a picometer between entry and exiting, you could open a rift into the universe. And with how often Luthor and other people are using this, how the hell has this not happened earlier? I know Luthor is a genius, but the whole Pocket Universe mechanic is a bigger stretch than middle-aged people fitting in tight clothes. Oh also, after more convincing from Big Dick Jimmy, Eve sends photo evidence of Luthor's master plan to him. It's all in selfie form because Eve isn't the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, but Luthor catches her and puts her in Pocket Dimension jail. Once Superman is awake, he talks to Pa Kent about the Jor-El message. And yes, in most adaptations of Superman, Pa Kent is as dead as TJ Miller's career by this point. Clark still feels confused and lost about what Jor-El intended, but Pa Kent comforts Clark and tells about the struggles he had when raising him. He says the job of a parent is to give their kids the tools they need to make good choices. And the choices you make, not the messages from your parents, determine who you are. So the change of Jor-El occurred for this thematic moment. It is nice to see a useful message about being good despite bad parenting promoted in a film, and within context of the story, it does work. But was it really the only way to present the conflict of which parent Clark should heed advice from when one is just straight up evil? The 1978 Superman handled its conflict of two good parents giving advice for Superman, and what he would choose at its climax, and it did it without throwing one father under the bus. But suddenly, Clark sees on TV the news about the rift opening up under Metropolis, and Baravia is about to invade Jarhanpur. Also, Lois gets the information from Jimmy about Luthor. Luthor's plan is to help Baravia invade Jarhanpur. Baravia's leader has secretly been getting weapons and resources from Luthor, in exchange for half of Jarhanpur to be given to Luthor once the invasion is successful. But they needed Superman out of the way by destroying his reputation, and if needed, And Luthor wants this desert land because supposedly it has a lot of oil, even though it's shown as a poor country with an army made up of a militia. And also, Luthor's cult can expand into some kind of new headquarters in the new territory. Which is also bizarre they're described like this, because we haven't been shown nearly enough about Luthor Corp's company culture to conclude Luthor has made up some sort of smart Manson family. He acts like a cult leader, but what CEO doesn't? And his closest team of workers doesn't say they're dedicated to Luthor's cause or worship him at every turn like an actual cult would. So I can only assume those paychecks must be big and worth it. And with the Metropolis Rift, an evacuation was ordered, because the big fight needs to occur without collateral human life. But I'm not buying the entire city was evacuated in time. A major city doesn't just empty in a couple of hours. And with a lot of buildings that get destroyed from this rift, there's no way innocent lives weren't lost. So this whole fight still has a Man of Steel insane decimation to it. Superman helps save some people when evacuating, before he and Terrific have to fight the Engineer and Hammer of Bravia. The invasion also occurs, and the film tries to build up the tension if Superman will arrive. But the Justice Gang arrive instead and easily thwart the invasion and kill the Bravia leader.
Mission accomplished. Good work, Marines.
Back to Metropolis, the big fight occurs in almost Jacob's Field, and the Engineer deploys her nanites into Superman's eyes and lungs, which supposedly cut off his air. While incapacitated briefly, it doesn't work. He takes both fighters and flies up high into space, and then plummets to the Earth, killing the Engineer. Not exactly sure how Superman overcame the nanites, but shut up, don't think about it. But the Hammer's helmet is cracked, revealing that he's a clone of Superman?
What? What?
And this is played up for some big reveal, but instead you're thinking, holy shit, Luthor can clone people? Because how could anyone guess it was a clone? Because we don't know what all Luthor is capable of. Said clone has special needs, however, so he's controlled by drones that Luthor uses to shout commands at him. Superman is losing the fight, but Krypto emerges and helps destroy the command drones. Once they're destroyed, Superman gets the upper hand and sends his clone into the black hole underneath. Then Mr. Terrific emerges, cause he was on break or something, and gets Superman up. Luthor then sends in the Raptors, and Superman obliterates them easily. Then the two heroes confront Luthor in his headquarters, because at that command center is the only way to shut down the rift. Oh, also, the Daily Planet gang uploaded an article damning Luthor's plans in Terrific's ship, and immediately sentiment is turned against Luthor. Luthor screams in frustration that Superman shouldn't be admired and isn't human, no matter what. Superman replies he is quite human, more so than Luthor, and then Krypto comes in to wreck Luthor and Terrific closes the portal.
And there was much rejoicing.
The thing is, essentially all of the action scenes in this film have Superman losing or needing a major assist to win. And I'm surprised even in the film's climax, there wasn't more opportunity given to have Superman be self-reliant to stop Lex. Hell, Krypto gets to beat up Luthor instead of the Man of Steel. And wouldn't it be better for the film if, going through a rough stretch when getting knocked down physically and mentally, Superman gets back up by being truly all-powerful in the climax? But to wrap it up, Luthor is arrested. The city is saved with the rift merging, just ignore the fallen buildings. Supergirl retrieves her dog, Krypto, to tease the next film. Superman and Lois remain together and make out. And I would like to go over one more big theme in the film. Kindness is the new punk rock. This is something Superman tells Lois before he turns himself in, because it's kind of how he views himself among the world. I don't hate Superman having this view if the world has become very cruel. Think like a near dystopian level of cruelty, like in Clockwork Orange. And his views would then be truly unique in a broken world. But the film doesn't have the world in this state. It's not in the opening text that the world has become so hateful. We aren't shown scenes of regular people being cruel to their fellow man. The public in person like and supports Superman before the message came out. So this theme presented is just surface level based on the story told, but it could have been so much more meaningful, as is the case with almost all of the writing aspects of this film. But regarding the future of the DC universe, I'm somewhat interested in where they take this world, because I think there are potentially good stories that can be told within this new universe. And its tone and framing are better to build off of than the DCEU's, even if the first cinematic entry wasn't ideal. As I mentioned in my Brave New World video, I'm not a fanboy of either DC or Marvel. I just want good storytelling. And this was a nice change of pace from Marvel's rut, despite all the flaws. But I hope for the future, it doesn't repeat the mistakes made in the present. Anywho, thank you all for watching. Expect more videos from me, Almighty Z, discussing more media from A to Z. So long.